Hello, everybody. It is your Professor Rocco, you boy, coming at you once again with another Age of Sigmar video. In this AoS general class, I'm feeling this is more of a general than a master's class, but it might be a master's class, who knows. We are finally done with our other series, breaking down common mistakes I see within player turns, and now a very, very much requested video by the viewers. We have the General's Handbook, the current General's Handbook, Season 1 of 2022-2023, Battle Tactics. We're going to be breaking those down for you to help you figure them out, how to game plan around that. And yeah, without further ado, let's jump right in. So what are battle tactics to those who've just found this channel and barely know what Age of Sigmar is? For you new players, which is why I actually make all this, because welcome to the hobby! This is great! The game's really fun! Battle tactics. If you're doing match play at the start of your hero phase, you pick like a secondary objective from a list. Usually the battle pack, which is where you're getting your battle plans from, whether it's narrative stuff or in this case matched play, specifically for tournaments. You get a list, you pick from them. It's a secondary objective for your player turn to see if you score additional points. This is where you hear a lot of players say, if you're watching battle reports, it's hold 1, hold 2, hold more, and then my battle tactic. You hold one objective for 1 point generally. You hold a second objective for 2. If you hold more than your opponent, you score a third point, and then you score generally 2 points for a battle tactic. There are ways to get bonus points, and we'll talk about them. It's not a lot in this edition of the General's Handbook, but they're there. One of the things you also have to do with this is tell your opponent which one you picked. This isn't a secret plotting kind of a thing. This is, you have to be upfront and have good sportsmanship about this. And you can't repeat a battle tactic. Even if you failed it or even if you succeeded before, you cannot repeat a battle tactic. Which is why, with this season's battle tactics being harder, well, things get a lot harder. And you got to make sure you're really picking your spots here where you can. Now, again, I'm going to state this out front. We are not going over battle tome specific battle tactics. We're not doing that. This video is specifically for the General's Handbook, because if I went through every single one that was optional from battle tomes or white dwarfs, it would be a 3-hour video, and that's not what we do at this channel. We shoot for 15 to 20 minutes, and this still might be like a 30-minute video, which is long for me. Also, what is a Galatian veteran? I'm going to call it a galley vet too. But Gallet is actually the area that we're fighting over in the Mortal Realms. And it is a special rule where your battle line units, if they have a wounds characteristic of 4 or less, can fight in 2 ranks. They get this cool keyword where they can be put in these different battalions for... There's 2 of them. There's one called Expert Conquerors where you score each model as if it counted as 3 models, or people put other units into the Bounty Hunters Battalion, which they hunt Galatian veterans to get extra damage against them. But the long story short is it's a rule to try to make hordes more successful and battle line feel more impactful. Kind of like how Games Workshop tried to make monsters more impactful and powerful last General's Handbook. And they gave you this really cool thing with the Galatian vets where they can count as more models. And especially for Gluttons, if you have a model that's on like a big 32 or 40 millimeter base or bigger that is 4 wounds or less, what ended up happening was they usually had an inch long reach, so they weren't allowed to actually fight within 2 ranks. But now, if you are within a ½ inch of a model that's in base-to-base contact with somebody, you can fight behind them. If you played 40k, it's their melee rules. And with this, it's much easier to just simplify and cut out the jargon and say you can fight in 2 ranks with your stuff if they are a Galatian veteran. My Namarti Thralls, who just got 2-inch reach, feel a little hurt, but my Stormcast, who went through something similar with the previous General's Handbook, where there was a battalion in the old one where you ignored monstrous actions, and everyone's like, well, why would you ever take this Stormcast faction that ignores monstrous actions? Games Workshop will change these rules up each General's Handbook in each season. So I love this Galatian veteran change, and when it goes away, I'm already thinking ahead of what to do. But for this season, you can fight in 2 ranks with your battle line. There are 2 battalions, one that buffs Galatian vets and one meant to kill them. And there are battle tactics that specifically focus on the Galatian veteran keyword, which will come into play here. With our first battle tactic, we have them doing this in alphabetical order, against the odds, which is just straight up, you pick a unit from your starting army that is on the battlefield. Alright, so no reserves, no summon. And you complete this battle tactic if at the end of this turn, being your player turn, any models from that unit are contesting an objective that you control, and the objective is not being contested by enemy Galatian veterans models. It's the whole idea that against the odds, they're holding out against the veterans. And it's very popular to open your game with if you're going first. You know, it's just a nice opening move where it's easy to score. If I don't have to open with this, I try to save it for later just because, again, it is so easy. This is the easiest you're going to get, is pick one of your units, hold an objective without an enemy Galatian veteran unit on it. If you played last General's Handbook, there was one called Monstrous Takeover where you had to have a monster on the objective contesting it and the enemy didn't have a monster on it. This is that. This is easy. This is nice. We like this. And I like this. I just don't know if I could save it, I'll just do it for later. Next, an eye for an eye. The saying is an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind, but as my dog pacing up and down, because I don't know what he's doing, but he's antsy because this battle tactic, if one of your units was destroyed in the previous turn, you just have to destroy an enemy unit during this turn. Again, it's easy once fighting starts. You're probably not doing this battle round 1. You're saving this for battle round 2 or 3 once the armies clash and fighting goes on. This doesn't have to be done with melee weapons, which is nice. In fact, this could just be done with abilities or spells. You just have to, if you are in a rough spot, right? If you're the type of player that always seems to leave a unit on 1 wound, right? And then you double turn after you lost some stuff. And there's one Hex Wraith, or there is 1 Orc, or there is 1 Chaos Warrior just chilling there on 1 wound. You take this and you pop them with an Arcane Bolt. Easy and done. Barge through enemy lines. There was a previous one of this earlier in the last General's Handbook. They brought it back, where if you have 2 or more units from your starting army, no summons. And when I say summons, I mean certain armies have the ability to summon on new troops or brand new units of troops or other units, and not heroes generally. If you try to do this battle tactic, you can't use that. Fair enough. But you need to have 2 or more units from your starting army wholly within your opponent's territory by the end of the turn. And if 2 or more of those units were Galatian veterans, this is where you score the bonus point. So again, if you can teleport and you have a lot of speed and movement, great. Or if the territories are close together, great. It feels like in this General's Handbook with the battle plans, the territories are a bit smaller. And because a lot of the focus is more in the middle of the board, away from the territories, this isn't that easy, but at least you don't have to rely on your opponents, right? Because the first one we talked about was the opener everyone likes to do, is you can control what goes on because you pick an objective where your opponent isn't at and do it, right? The second one, you need to have a unit die in order for you to kill something. And even then, your opponent's still involved because you still need to kill something. This, again, it's good because it's up to you to do this. And if you can't get this right, this is on you. We like barge through enemy lines. Desecrate enemy lands. Again, this is pick a terrain feature that is partially or wholly within your opponent's territory. Again, the territory's got a little smaller, a little farther to get to, it feels like. And you complete this battle tactic if you control that terrain feature. A lot of people barely know the terrain feature rules, and what ends up happening is they're like, oh yeah, cool, I can control it like I do a normal objective, and it's like, no, you have to be like within an inch of the terrain, and you have to outbody people, and all the weirdness aside, I really like this one a lot. Because again, if I can do this, it frees up against the odds, or it frees up an eye for later. Because there are... one of the L-shaped deployments is back if you played Age of Sigmar before, where it's like you have the long table edge and partway up, and you can start relatively close to your opponent. And the thing, too, is that's weird that I have to put it as an addendum. Some people still play Age of Sigmar like it's fantasy with barely any terrain and it's an open flat field and you just shoot at each other and then run at each other in a big field battle. That is not what Age of Sigmar is supposed to be. We have terrain pieces. There should be like 6 to 8 terrain pieces throughout this table. Some of them should be things to block line of sight. Some of them should also be your own faction terrain that you brought in here. This is great on a terrain-dense table where there are larger territories. I am a fan of this battle tactic. I think more people should be playing probably with more terrain and utilizing some of the rules that we have. We don't have a lot of terrain rules, but they're okay if you use them. Hear my dog laughing in the background because he's just like, I'm going off here. Gaining momentum. So, gaining momentum, I grimaced a little bit because it's pick an enemy unit on the battlefield. You complete this battle tactic if you destroy that unit and you control more objectives than your opponent. Now, again, we're relying on our opponent here to be involved in a battle tactic. It's going to get harder. It's a 2-step process. 1, you've got to kill the unit, and 2, you've got to actually control more objectives than your opponent. And sometimes that's hard. You know, you're not in a good position for it. This is either a really, really early game, like you're going second, your opponent tried to alpha strike you, they failed their charge, their Maw Crusher is hanging out there all alone, and you can kill it because you're not worried about it redeploying too far because you'll have the movement to get around it and corral it and crush it. Or you know that you can take objectives without having to fight, and again, something was already partially wounded and you just have to finish it off. And there is no specification about how you destroy it, just that it needs to be destroyed, which is really nice with gaining momentum. But again, it's a 2-parter, in that you got to kill something and you have to control more objectives. On face value, that shouldn't sound hard, but because your opponent can redeploy, can, save stack with all-out defenses, or if they had a Mystic Shield up and that's the unit you picked, or throw out, if you're choosing a hero, one of the heroic actions to give themselves +1 to save and +1 to wound, all of a sudden, these small things start racking up about why this can be hard. Head-to-head. Alright. Now, head-to-head is you pick an enemy Galatian veteran unit that is on the battlefield. And, summoned units can get the Galatian veteran keyword, which is great. In the last edition of the game, there was a thing saying summoned units can't get certain keywords. That is gone in this edition. A lot of people don't realize that. It might come back with like a battle scroll or something, but at the time of this recording, that's legal. So you're looking for an enemy Galatian veteran unit, right? And you complete this battle tactic if that unit is destroyed by an attack made by a friendly Galatian veteran unit or by an ability. So, what does that mean? Well, an ability could be like impact hits from charging into them. Like an ogre charge. You know, if you've got the ogre gluttons charging in, got a big unit of like 12 of them, you roll, or however many they come by now, I don't even know. You know, you roll the dice on 4-ups, you do mortal wounds. That works. Or they just beat the snot out of them. That also works. Or if you are, say, Mind of Marty Reavers, that are Galatian veterans for my Deepkin, if they shoot a Galatian veteran unit dead, that works too. The thing is, if everyone brought galley vets to the party, that's great. This is doable. Fantastic. If they brought 1 or 2 units, this gets a little hard. Like if it's like Tree Revenants and they brought like 2 units of 5 that are just chilling in the back, you save this for later when you get a chance at them. If no one brought Galatian veterans, this one becomes impossible, and you just eliminate that from any chance of doing it. You know, it's like the last General's Handbook again. It was like, kill a monster. Well, if I didn't have monsters to kill, can't do it. So you can't do it. And there are no bonus points for killing Galatian veteran units like there were for killing monsters last General's Handbook. So, again, there's been a very big lack of bonus points to try to run up the score on your opponent. A lot of games that I've played in and have seen have been relatively close affairs that, because either one side's just getting blown out of the water because they can't take objectives, or the players are going back and forth if they're both equally skilled or similarly skilled and one has a strong army into a weak army. You know, playing field's even enough. And it comes down to a battle tactic being scored or a grand strategy. And again, as much as people are like, oh no, Galatian veterans, they're very easy to kill, I don't see the upside to some of it. Just by having this to be able to be scored by you, to give you that option, it might just be worth it to throw this in there, just for the heck of it. Just to give yourself more options. Because again, we are just focusing on General Handbook battle tactics, but not every tournament is going to allow you to use Battle Tome and White Dwarf battle tactics, so we're just focusing on this right now. Outmuscle. Again, we're going to get into a little more jargon here. Outmuscle. Pick one enemy Galatian veteran unit that has any models contesting an objective marked as the Proving Ground. Alright, now you complete this battle tactic if no models from that enemy unit are contesting the Proving Ground at the end of this turn. You do not have to kill them off the objective. You just have to get them off the objective. They could redeploy off. They could pull models off the objective. That would be silly, but that could happen. There are spells like Devolve that could force people to move. And again, but generally you are going to have to kill them. And it is involving your opponent having Galatian veteran units, so that's rough. And what is a Proving Ground, too? Because that's just a whole new term here, and that is a new rule where if you go second in a battle round, you pick one of the objectives that are on the table, and again, you say that once per game, this objective can only be contested by a Galatian veteran unit for the battle round. So if you know you're going second and then your opponent is like, the only way they can hold an objective is with this Galatian veteran thing, and you force them to put their Galatian veterans on the objective or they're just not going to score points, you set this up perfectly for yourself. Bravo. You know, sweep the leg, finish them, take your 2 points. You did it. This is what you're looking for here. This is the big galaxy brain play that it makes going second feel okay in a battle round. if you can pull this off. But there are just so many other things that are easier. If you can set this up right to save yourself one of the easier battle tactics, go for it. If not, I'm not too worried about it. And again, there's a lot of moving pieces here. They need to have Galatian veterans. They need to be on a proving ground. And then you need to do something to get them off. That is, in my mind, 3 things that need to happen. And honestly, all 3 of them are kind of out of your control, because if you're not careful with how to fight, again, redeploys are a thing, where they may not redeploy the Galatian veterans off the objective. They may redeploy one of their units closer, so that if you charge in, you have to fight both units. They might have some kind of special ability to protect them better. It's rough. It's rough. It's rough. But after this, last one is called This One's Mine, where you pick an enemy unit that is on the battlefield, and you need your general that you picked it when you made your list, not like Nagash, where he's always a general, and you actually picked your Leech Cavalos to get a command trait and the artifact. You need that Leech Cavalos to go flying at something that you picked, and they need to lead by example and kill the thing. So already there's a couple reasons why this can be hard. One being, if you picked a support hero to be your general, they're probably not killing anything. Alright? 2, and this is funny, if you have impact hits, you might accidentally kill it with an ability, not by an attack, and then that's just, you might screw yourself out there. But if you do have an Achillean King or a Maw Crusher, or you actually chose in list building to make Nagash your general to do this specifically, more power to you. But you need to, 1, pick an enemy and you announce it, which unit your general is going to kill, so your opponent knows. So again, if they have reactions, if they redeploy, they best day ever, the heroic action, if they have buffs to put on, like an all-out defense, they redeploy onto cover for an extra plus to their save. You know, they save stacked like crazy. This becomes very, very hard to do. And you also need to go and put your general out into harm's way. Because once they do this, they're generally dead right after. That was a pun. And I like it because, again, there's a lot of risk reward. And if you're going second in a battle round to do this, and then you get the double turn, you know, your general's fine. There is no retribution. If you screw up trying to do this, because, again, they redeploy, they rolled that 6. That went from a 3-inch charge to a 9-inch charge. That right there could just sink this, let alone all the save stacking and all the other abilities. So, again, it's harder to do. It's not impossible. It's not relying on them bringing Galatian veterans, which a few of these have. And I like it. You know, I like it. I like the idea, the thematic bit of your general going, this one's mine, I'm going to go take them. This is our honor duel. They go charging off with their lance down or their sword drawn and run into combat to go and slice and dice. I like it. It's just kind of, like all of these, they're all a little harder as a unit than the last General's Handbook, which, in summary, I think that's a good thing, because these are balanced around competitive play for tournaments, and they should be harder because of that. They are there to increase the player skill, to test yourself. I like that. I like that the Galatian veteran thing needs to be there to just do the basic battle tactic, and it's not just scoring you bonus points and running up the score like last season with the monsters. Because, like, my general on Frostheart Phoenix, or Flamespire Phoenix, or my Griffin, were just, or Shelly Baby Girl in my Deepkin, were just brutal. And dragons were brutal. And to be able to score bonus points as easily as they could, be like, kill a battle line with a monster. Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's freaking easy. It's like 5 wounds is some schmuck that was a screen. Yeah. So these battle tactics really do rely on your list building. Do you want to stop yourself from being able to get a few of these, or even attempt them because you're not bringing Galatian veterans to the fold? Or do you want to build around them in order to try to get more of these other ones done? It's rough, but that's the point, right? You're doing a harder thing because you're trying to challenge yourself. This is tournament play specifically for these. And honestly, a lot of tournaments and events are still allowing the Battle Tome and the White Dwarf battle tactics. And half of those are, like, still kind of hard. Like, there are some that are easier. Everyone's going to harp on, like, Daughters of Cain, or there's a Cities of Sigmar one where you just have to have a flagellant unit, flagellant, whatever you want to call it. They fart a lot and they're dirty. Run around the battlefield. A lot of factions that have terrain pieces have a thing like defend the terrain piece. That's good. I'm not going to go deep into those because, again, as I stated earlier, this video would be like 4 times as long at least. And I will say, if you can do 3 or 4 of the General's Handbook ones, that's probably going to be all you'll need, And then you sneak in one from your Battle Tome or your White Dwarf article, and then you're just fine. There's your 5. It's like I'm looking at against the odds, an eye for an eye, desecrate their lands, and probably this one's mine because I like bringing in an offensive killy hero that's usually on some kind of a monster or can kill a monster. Again, whether it's the Frostart Phoenix or an Achillean King, I am generally going to do this one's mine. Especially because I've been on my Deepkin now for a while, where it's Battle Round 2 for me is usually where I do this one's mine. Because I'm running and charging, or running and shooting with the king. It's a run and charge. I will pop the Always Strikes First ability on the king to set up Battle Round 3 where my whole army's already striking first. So I've got combos and list tech to help me with this. And I hope after watching this video and explaining them, you can feel comfortable enough to do things like that too with your list building. Because, again, if you're relying on OUTMUSCLE or head-to-head, where everyone has to bring Galatian veteran units, or at least your enemy does. And if you're really relying on the barge through enemy lines bonus point, the singular bonus point, for doing it with Galatian veteran units, you might be having a harder game. Because, again, in list building, we've seen now through all these different tournaments, from all the data that people are throwing up on the internet for it, that, especially from sites like The Honest Wargamer, where people are taking non-1-drop armies. 1-drop is not the meta anymore. You're usually looking at like 3 drops to like 10 drops. Someone took like a 20-drop list in one of the tournaments recently. It was ridiculous. Where, you're doing things to get extra artifacts, and you're looking for that bounty hunters to do extra damage to Galatian veterans, and then you are still throwing your Galatian veterans in the battalion to make them count as more models to capture things. And I don't see like the OUTMUSCLE and the head-to-head being unobtainable unless you yourself didn't bring a Galatian veteran unit. To do the what was it, head-to-head? Yeah. And yes, a lot of these have a lot of moving parts, but again, especially after just the last series I just did of videos, you should be in a better place, my dear student, to actually do these. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming today to class. Like the video, leave a like, subscribe, say in the chat what you want me to cover next, and we'll get it to you. Unless Rocco, your girl, comes up with another 20-part video series. In that case, you'll be video 21. The fun joke. She's going to get me for it later. And again, thank you for coming. Have a great rest of your day, and I'd like to say at the end of all of our videos, class dismissed. Bye.